Welcome to Native Exiles, Alderwood Community Church's podcast, where we talk about following Jesus and the tension of being in the world, but not of it. We have an amazing interview for you today. My guest was Dr. Gregory Jantz, who is the founder of The Center, a Place for Hope, which is a Christian, whole person mental health services facility in Edmonds, Washington that's been helping people for over 40 years. Our conversation today is around anxiety. And if you have been living through the last decade with all the rest of us, you probably have been having conversations about anxiety. Maybe you've been feeling a lot of anxiety. Maybe this is a big part of your story or it's not, but I know that people in your life are struggling in a big way with anxiety. And I think our conversation today is really going to help you think through that from a biblical perspective, a spiritual perspective, even just our bodies, our biology, the makeup of who God made us to be. I think you're really going to learn a lot, and I'm excited to jump into it with you. Let's go. Greg, thank you for joining us today. I've been looking forward to this conversation for a long time.
Oh, and we have a great topic as well.
We do. So before we get to our topic, maybe for people who aren't familiar with your work, Can you just introduce yourself?
Yep, I'm the founder of The Center, a Place of Hope. We're a mental health facility where, folks, this is our 40th year, which sounds kind of strange to say, but 40 years, we're a whole person facility. We kind of started this back in the early 80s. We're a facility where people come from all over, help for depression. Anxiety is a big one right now, trauma, addiction. I just finished my 45th book. Some of my early work was in eating disorders, so we have a strong eating disorder program as well. But we do things a little differently, most being faith-based and Christian, but most facilities you go in and everybody kind of gets the same care. Here we actually design a team for you. So the team may include psychiatric help provider, medical, because we do medical as well. We have naturopathic physicians. We're going to look at wellness. We have dietitians. We're going to look at what goes in your mouth. Mental health counselors, substance use counselors. Oh, and everybody gets a fitness assessment. And we get them moving. And so it's about 6 hours a day, 6 days a week. Sunday is truly a day off. So I'm probably more passionate about our work now than I was even years ago, because I'm just seeing how well it works, seeing lives change. And, our country right now is in a mental health, I think it's beyond a crisis. We're probably in a mental health epidemic. People are suffering, and the two biggest things right now are anxiety and depression.
Well, that's why we have you here today.
Yes.
Yeah. And I think let's start by diving into anxiety a little bit. It does seem like we are in a moment right now where there just seems to be so much anxiety across the board. And for some people, it's just maybe minor part of life, the stress of just the modern world and whatever. But for many people, they're struggling with anxiety in a really crippling way. Can we start? Would you just help us understand what we're talking about when we're talking about anxiety?
Yeah, that's
What
good.
is anxiety?
What is it? Anxiety. Anxiety is kind of a funny word. Anxiety. What does that mean? Different types of anxiety. Post-pandemic, what's happened is anxiety has become the number one non-medical diagnosis. You go to your primary care physician, they're required to take you through a series of questions. A lot of that's to measure depression and anxiety. Anxiety right now, it's the number one diagnosis.
Wow.
That tells us a lot of people are experiencing and suffering from anxiety. Well, there's social anxiety, where I want to stay away from people and I isolate. I feel anxious. Anxiety, there's panic attacks. That's a form of anxiety. Just had a situation with a guy that just described it to me. He says, I was in my car driving. I broke out into a sweat. My heart starts racing. And I got blurry vision. I thought I was having a heart attack. Thought I was dying, but he was having a panic attack. So anxiety comes in different forms, but you're going to feel it physically. And that's how you know it's different than worry. Worry is, I'm what if, and I can work myself up pretty good with worry. And But once I start to get physical symptoms, I feel it in my gut. I get the headaches. I feel the butterflies. My sleep is disrupted. That's anxiety.
That's helpful. So why do you think we are in this moment as a nation? And really, it's not just the nation, it's the Western world, at least, maybe beyond that.
With the anxiety.
Yeah, but why is there so much anxiety right now? And do you think it's true that there is much more today than there was in decades past in other generations?
Yes, I do.
Yeah, so why is that?
And it's more acute. It's more intense. Well, we look at post-pandemic, mental health issues of skyrocketed, anxiety being a large one. And then we add social media in there.
Yeah.
Social media. So if you're already struggling, I'm feeling anxious, I'm having trouble sleeping, anxiety from the brain's perspective, this is the prefrontal cortex. This is where I make all my wise decisions, supposed to at least. Anxiety robs the blood flow here and puts it back in the primitive part of the brain.
Yeah.
And so that's why sometimes you feel froze. I can't think. I don't know. I can't answer a question because my brain's not working.
Yeah. Yeah.
So that's anxiety. I think the reason we have it, social media has added so much.
And what is it about social media that produces so much anxiety?
Well, the first thing we do is we compare, and everything looks different on social media. And it's kind of addictive.
Seems like it.
And we can get into there's the doom scrolling, but social media is, I say addictive because if you ask a person who really, they're struggling with their consumption of digital world, well, how much time did you spend on that last night? Oh, maybe 20, 30 minutes. But really, it was like 2, 3, 4 hours.
Yeah.
We always underestimate how much
It's pretty eye-opening when Apple and Android started actually giving you the report of the reality of how much time. Yeah, it was shocking at first because it seems like you spend so much less time on your phone than you actually do when the cold hard numbers are in front of you. It's kind of sobering.
We always underestimate it.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. And it does engage us and keeps us going, and the way it's designed is to do just that. So, and that's, I'm not even mentioning yet on gaming, video games, talk about an addiction. So when people come and see us, initially they turn in anything with the screen.
Yeah.
Okay, so then you got the cell phones, got the laptops, got the tablets, and that's a hard thing to do.
Yeah.
Day one, I turn it all in. Well, by day 2 and particularly day 3, there's a large group of our clients who are irritable, wanting their phone back. I forgot to make an email or do an email. There's some reason I need it back. And I've seen it with sweaty palms. I've seen heart rate go up. Mm-hmm. They're having a digital detox. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. It's real. I've seen it.
I mean, I've done that to myself several times intentionally. I think for anyone listening to the digital detox stuff and thinking like that sounds like a problem for somebody who really has a problem with their phone, right. I just would challenge you, go a week without any devices and see what happens to you. In my experience, it was exactly that. In day one, you're irritable, you're thinking about it all the time. It's really hard to be without all the connectivity. But my experience also is that by day 4, 5, 6, something like that, there's actually a lot of freedom, and you start to experience the world in a different way without your phone in your pocket, without the digital pull.
Well, and that's what we do. Week 1, Saturday rolls around, and the option is, okay, you can check out your phone for a part of the day, do whatever you need to do. There is a certain number of our clients who say, I don't think so. I'm doing pretty good right now.
Yeah.
They don't want to, because they're starting to feel better.
Yeah.
So social media, technology adds to anxiety. What happened during 4 years ago during the pandemic is alcohol consumption went way up.
Interesting.
So what people started to do during that time, drinking more, they've continued to do.
Yeah.
So when anxiety goes up, so does addiction.
Yeah.
In the state of Washington, cannabis was on the essential list.
Yes.
As was alcohol. In fact, a law was even changed so that restaurants could have in delivery hard alcohol.
Yeah, to-go alcohol, that's right.
To-go alcohol. So we set things up, and we are really paying a price now.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. So anxiety is this worry that you feel in your body. It's
with physical symptoms.
Physical symptoms. What is a healthy relationship with anxiety? Are we shooting for no anxiety at all? Because I guess to me that feels a little bit unattainable. I mean, it seems like it's just how we're wired. If you've got like a big project at work the next day or a presentation, or I preach on Sunday mornings, I feel some some anxiety before I get up there. And I mean, is that a problem? Like, when does anxiety become a problem?
No, there is normal anxiety. I am so glad you mentioned that, because there's times where anxiety, it's short term, it can be a motivator.
Yeah.
Right. I know I need to do a good job. I know I need to be prepared. I feel little symptoms in my body. I know I've got to do a good, and you prepare, and you do it. If you procrastinate, you increase anxiety.
I was gonna say, I didn't have any anxiety. I think I'd probably never stop procrastinating. So so there's some use.
So I'm going to say there's normal, temporary, motivating anxiety. I think that's being a human being.
Yeah.
And there's things that happen in life. You get an unexpected phone call. There's unexpected diagnosis. There are people who maybe there was a terrible accident. There's something traumatic. Our initial response is anxiety.
Yeah.
Okay, that I think is human. We can't stay stuck there, because anxiety, if we look at it from a spiritual vantage point, anxiety, I think the enemy uses, it paralyzes us. It stops personal growth. It freezes relationships.
Yeah.
Leads us at times towards addiction. So we really do need to be aware of it.
So how, if you were going to ask someone to be reflective, to think of their own relationship with anxiety, like, what would be some of the markers that would indicate to you that there's an issue, that there's a problem? Like, how do you know if you have beyond what's healthy anxiety?
Yes. Okay. Beyond what's normal. Well, I start to look at what physical symptoms do I have, and how many of those symptoms do I have? Okay. Did I wake up this morning with a pit in my stomach, and it's so severe that I haven't eaten today, and instead I've drank 10 cups of coffee?
Yeah.
Right? Okay. So you look at, are the physical symptoms increasing or decreasing? And suddenly do I have headaches because of anxiety? And have I stopped some of my normal self-care? People with a lot of anxiety have trouble with ultimately basic self-care.
Yeah.
How's my hygiene? Am I, taking care of myself?
Yeah.
When your anxiety gets high, you stop doing those things. That's a sign.
It feels to me like it starts to spiral too with that, because you stop doing the things that are going to help you regulate your anxiety. You stay up too late because you don't want to face the next day, and then next day you're tired because you don't have any sleep, and you're less prepared to moderate and handle anxiety in a healthy way. So it just spirals.
And one of the next things to look at is, what am I doing in my relationships? Am I so anxious that I'm avoiding people that I normally look forward to seeing?
Yeah.
So am I isolating? That's a sign this is a little bit out of control. And when I isolate, am I engaging in any self-destructive behaviors? Secretly, it could be eating.
Yeah.
Am I secretly eating? Am I secretly drinking? Am I misusing prescription drugs? What am I doing when I isolate?
Yeah.
And then I think there's a spiritual, what's going on spirit? Well, do I feel unlovable? Do I feel so anxious that it's like, man, I don't feel lovable. I don't think God loves me. I pray, nothing happens. I try to read the Bible, but I can't even read a sentence. Can't even concentrate. You start to feel those things.
Yeah. Okay. That's helpful. So you talked a little bit earlier about the whole person approach that you like to take. And so let's talk about that for a second. From why does it matter to consider more than just what's going on in your mind, but a whole person approach to tackling an issue like anxiety?
And this is so far my favorite question.
Okay, good.
Okay, well, here's what. So when you come and see us, right? I want to know what's going on in your body. So we're gonna do some blood work. Do you have a low thyroid? Low thyroid always make you feel anxious.
Interesting.
Are you deficient in vitamin D? You probably feel depressed and anxious. Hormonally is something way off. Probably feel anxious. So what's potentially going on that could be making all this worse?
Yeah.
So we want to know that. The other piece is, has there been trauma in your life? Something real, it could be significant abuse, and it's never really been dealt with, and it just keeps. You think you're okay, but a few times a year, all this comes up for you, and it kicks you over into some despair. So I want to know what's unresolved in your life, okay? And so we're just kind of looking at different areas. Is there a secret addiction? Mm-hmm. Sometimes people will go to their doctor and say, I'm depressed and anxious. You get the pill, right?
Yeah.
You go, okay, I just need this pill. And you take the pill and you think I'm a little better, but then I keep drinking, or I'm hiding something.
Yeah.
So we want to, well, are you hiding anything that's making this worse?
Yeah.
And then there's another one I want to mention, because kind of going through the list. Is there unforgiveness? That's a powerful one. A person that has a lot of resentment towards others or towards themselves, full of bitterness, easy to be offended, pick up offenses. Unforgiveness will give you anxiety.
Why is that?
Isn't that interesting?
Yeah.
Because after a while, because you're avoiding things, avoiding people, and unforgiveness is like a toxin. It's a poison.
Yeah.
That's why it turns into bitterness. So we want to look at that. And maybe it's self-forgiveness. But what is the root? What's at the root of the anxiety?
Yeah. Well, I love that you bring that up. I mean, as a pastor, so often I see people struggle with the reality that our mental health, something like anxiety, depression, that there's so many different factors involved. People want to kind of put things into a category. They want to say, anxiety is a spiritual issue. Right. And if you're experiencing it, then you need to pray more, you need to read your Bible, you need to trust God. Or you'll get people who kind of reacting against that will say, no, anxiety is, it's chemicals in your brain. It's purely biology. You got to get on the right meds and sort that out, and, stop shaming people about their faith when it comes to anxiety, and I just, to me, it makes so much more sense to understand that there's a lot going on here. God created us as embodied creatures. Yes. We have a body. There are chemicals in your brain, but we're also spiritual creatures. I think one of the things that you're pointing out that just resonates with me so much is we need to have a little bit of a more full theology around sin. I think that, a lot of times we talk about sin in just terms of what's moral, right, and wrong. Mm-hmm. It is right to forgive someone. It is wrong not to. It is right not to abuse alcohol. It is wrong not to. That's true. But sin is also a sickness. It's also, it infects us. And we should expect that in the areas of our life that we haven't yet let the Holy Spirit work and bring about wholeness and new life, that there's going to be effects in our soul and in our body, and anxiety might be one of those, and I think that's really helpful. Yeah. If you were talking to somebody not who's come into the center and requested treatment, but just a friend, an acquaintance, a follower of Jesus, who is sharing that they're struggling with a lot of anxiety. They're talking about those symptoms that you've mentioned. I'm waking up in the morning. I don't want to get out of bed. I've got the pit in my stomach. I'm the headache, panic attack now and again, that sort of thing. What would you suggest that person begin with in a journey to try to deal with this anxiety? What are some starting steps that someone might take?
Good. Well, I think we tend to try to handle it all on our own. So I want you to go to that person who you trust. And I only want you to share with people who could likely be of help.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
So, and it might be a pastor or a real trusted friend where you're going to just say, this is really what's going on with me. And let them ask a few questions.
Yeah.
The more that we're able to ask, the more that you're able to share, because we really do want to understand, how bad is this? How long has this been going on? What have you tried? The counselor's favorite question is, tell me more.
Yes.
Okay, you're just a good friend, and you really are going to, no, tell me more about I really want to understand what's going on.
Yeah.
Because the person with anxiety, they're seeking to feel heard and understood, because I feel like nobody really gets this, because anxiety lies to you. Anxiety tells you, you're a little crazy. Yeah, and anxiety lies to you.
Yeah.
So be honest with somebody who's trustworthy. And then we need to begin to take maybe some baby steps on what's a plan here. And sometimes that means I need to have a little further assessment. But sometimes a person with anxiety, they know what it's from. And you can even ask, what do you think's really going on here? What is this about?
Yeah.
And sometimes they know.
Yeah. Do you, how often in your experience do you think the conscious object of your anxiety is the actual cause? Does that make sense? Like, you're worried about a relationship that isn't going well, or it's work related. It's I'm burning out. I've got so much on my plate, whatever. Like, how often is that the actual problem? Or is it that there's something beneath that? There's a trauma. There's, something that maybe requires a little bit more self-reflection than just the obvious low-hanging fruit of, if I just, had an easier job, I'd be fine. Does that make sense?
I think there's always a root or some roots of the anxiety, but then after you carry it for a while, then you start having those physical symptoms. Then it starts to affect your sleep. Then it starts to affect you get a lot of fear. And I'm just reminded of 2 Timothy 1:7, where the Lord said, has not given me a spirit of fear, but of power, love, and a sound mind. Yeah. So I'm thinking, okay, what's robbing my sound mind? I'm promised a sound mind. Well, what are the ingredients of a sound mind? Yeah. So sometimes there's a prayer of discernment. Lord, show me what I'm missing. What's the missing piece of the puzzle? So we need to pray for some wisdom here.
Yeah, that's good. So let's say I am that friend that someone has chosen to share this with. That they've come to me. They say, I'm really struggling with anxiety. Will you, hear what's going on and pray with me about this and talk about this? And so I'm doing a good job. I don't always do this, but let's just pretend I'm doing a good job. And I'm asking more questions. I'm saying, tell me more, and let's talk.
We're just trying to understand what's going on.
I'm listening. When it comes time to say, okay, let's put that plan together. Let's start talking about what some steps that need to be taken here. What are some of the steps that someone should give as advice in this sort of situation? What are some of the first things that someone should do once they have that realization that they're really struggling with anxiety?
Well, I'm going to ask them, have you told anybody else? And have you ever sought help for this before? So I want to know that. If the answer, I sought help, what did you do before? And maybe the next step, can I put you in touch with a couple resources where you can explore? Let's just see what the options are. Some people are at a point, they need something a little more intense, but they don't really know, what does that look like? Or can I do this? But they need a little more intensive type help.
Yeah. I mean, do you think for someone who is experiencing enough anxiety that it's worth talking to somebody about, do you think that professional mental health services is one of the first steps you would broadly prescribe to people? That's a great place to start? Or do you think that's maybe down the road a few steps? There's some things to try.
Even though I'm in the field, it's probably not going to be my very first suggestion unless I can tell they're in despondency, they need some immediate intervention, then it's pretty clear.
Yeah.
But
So if they're not there, what would be some things to do before you get to the point of trying to set up some regular sessions with a therapist or a counselor?
Well, I'm going to ask them, like in our case, we have a really wonderful online questionnaire related to anxiety that's got all kinds of symptoms listed. I might ask a person, take this online survey, see where your score is. I'm going to be really selective, but I'm going to, selective. I wrote a great book on anxiety, of course.
And we'll link to that. Yeah.
But I want them to gather more information.
Yeah.
Just gather right now. Let's gather more information, and let's be prayerful to see what the next steps need to be.
Yeah.
Okay. And it might be now. I'm a counselor. I'm going to be. Yes, I may recommend, but I really want to make sure that it's somebody that understands the faith perspective, understands the whole person, and sometimes it needs to be more than, if you will, just talk therapy. I need to be taught new skills. I need to be taught how to deal with my emotions. If a person hasn't had a physical or blood work in a while, I'm going to probably say, look, let's just see what potentially is going on.
Yeah.
I cannot begin to tell you how many times, because we do it as standard practice, that a client is like really low in vitamin D. It's like, how many times does that come up?
Wow.
And, okay, that's an easy solution. Another 30 days, they are feeling better. It may not be the only reason.
Yeah.
But it's influencing them.
Yeah.
Quite a bit.
Well, that's a great segue, because I want to talk about medication a little bit.
Sure.
And I think, again, it's one that, especially in the church, there's a lot of, I would go so far as to say, controversy around.
Sure.
I think some people who strongly are against medication, and maybe because they believe that you're essentially trying to solve a spiritual problem with a medical solution that's not going to be helpful. And then many people who are very strong advocates of medication are saying, why would you not accept the offerings of modern medicine and advancement? And, from your perspective, with the whole body approach, what role does medication have in treating chronic anxiety?
Well, let me just say it can have a role. Our physicians and prescribers do use medication. It's not the only, just don't make it the only thing you do.
Yeah.
I think there's times, and we tend to see it as, this is just a bridge to help you for a short period of time while we're working on some other things.
Yeah.
There can reach a point where the person's has so much, maybe it's panic attacks, they're just really not functioning. Well, if I can help you feel better for a short period of time while we work on some things, great. Do I want to set up a dependency on medication? No. With anxiety, I have to be very careful about the types of medications. Some of the most popular medications for anxiety are highly addictive. Well, that's, for many people, not a good idea.
Yeah.
So,
yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. What do you think are some of the maybe the downsides of medication? I mean, you're mentioning it's possible that you get addicted.
Yeah, for some, with some of the medications.
Okay.
Yes.
Are there other red flags, or?
Well, if it's the only thing I do, I'm going to be disappointed.
Okay. Disappointed because it just won't work?
Maybe I'll have some short term, but a person coming to us will say, I've tried everything. They're coming in and they're bringing their medications, and they're already on 5 different medications, and they don't need another pill.
Yeah.
And so our doctors a lot of times are helping rebalance that and really diminishing the reliance on multiple medications. So we don't want to do that. There are some really, for example, we do IV nutrient therapy.
Huh.
Okay, what is that? Well, your blood work is done, and if we can put together an IV formula of amino acids, magnesium, some calming, and you take a short IV. And this is growing in popularity in the mental health field because it works.
Yeah.
Your body gets calm, and you probably were pretty deficient in some nutrients and some of the B vitamins, and B vitamins are for the nervous system. And suddenly you feel like, oh man, I do feel a little better, and you can focus and concentrate.
Yeah.
So again, that's the whole person.
Yeah. Yeah. That's good. For the person who has been struggling with anxiety for a long time.
Yes.
Maybe has sought some professional help, and maybe somewhat helpful, but still this is a big struggle for them. I think there's a sense where you just start to feel like it doesn't feel real hopeful that this is ever going to be different for me.
Right.
What might you say to a person who's in that position?
Yes, and I'm going to say it's been chronic, and maybe you've had some better months and then some worse months, but it seems like it's always there.
Yeah.
And I feel for that situation because you've probably have tried so many things. And, I've had people say, well, I was told there must be hidden sin in my life. And the person goes, I don't know. I'm not trying to hide anything. I don't know what it could be.
Yeah.
Where you start to blame yourself.
Yeah.
Right? And I see it as a 1,000-piece puzzle. Okay. You've tried a lot of things, and maybe we're down to the remaining 10 pieces of the puzzle. Let's pray for wisdom that God can show us what's missing in this puzzle. Look at it that way.
Yeah.
There's missing pieces. Let's make an agreement. We're not going to give up until we get all those pieces in there.
Yeah.
And it's amazing because, usually it's just a handful of things that still need some attention. A person who's lived with chronic anxiety, it's almost become a part of their identity.
Yeah.
They've carried it for so long, it feels like it's, and when they don't have it, they go, what's wrong? This feels good, but something's wrong.
Yeah.
Because so you've carried it for so long.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, that's good. I think it's good just theologically to remind ourselves that God did not create us to live in fear, that perfect love casts out fear, that you were, even if it feels like anxiety is a part of who you are, it isn't actually. God created you to live in freedom, and he's powerful enough to deliver you from even the things that feel impossible. Yeah. And so just to keep that hope, it's worth trying the next step. It's worth asking for help. It's worth talking to someone. I think,
absolutely.
I just want to encourage anyone listening with that.
Yeah. And one of the things you could do is take a verse. Remember the old-fashioned 3x5 cards? I want you to write that verse on a card. And I want you to make an agreement. Next 30 days, carry that with you. I want you to go for a 20-minute walk a day. And as you're walking 2 or 3 times, I want you to pull that out of your pocket. I want you to say that verse out loud. And I want you just to pray, Lord God, show me what I need to know in order to have healing. Show me what I need to know. But carry that verse, speak it out loud, and just try that for a month. See what God will bring to you.
Yeah, that's a good word. Well, Greg, I think we'll leave it with that. Thank you so much for the conversation today.
Good conversation. Thank you.
That was Dr. Gregory Jantz. I hope that was a helpful conversation for you. If you want to engage more with Greg's work and maybe check out the center, we'll link his website in the show notes, aplaceofhope.com. You can also find there that anxiety test that he mentioned earlier to do a little reflecting on your own about how you're doing around the issue of anxiety. If this conversation was helpful to you, we would love for you to share it with somebody in your life who you think might benefit from it as well. But other than that, we'll wait to talk to you again soon on Native Exiles. Thanks.